Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another podcast. I am once again joined by Dr. Fred Bisci. Dr. Bisci has been on a raw food diet for over 50 years. He is a clinical nutritionist with a PhD in nutritional science, and I'm happy to have you back, Fred. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
We had a great podcast last time. We were very casual. We talked about your early life and things like that. And of course, the moment the cameras stop rolling and the microphones get shut off, some of the real intense conversation starts every single time that happens. And now I know why Oprah does after the show. So she has the Oprah show, or she used to, and she was still doing a show. She has the Oprah show, and then she has after the show. And it's the conversation between her and the audience and everything, because it's so much great stuff that happens there. And last time our conversation went to cancer, because I had recently, we had recently lost a friend, very young, 49 years old she was, to cancer. A couple of years ago, I lost a friend, 38 years old, to a cancer that I believe was completely preventable. But younger and younger people are getting cancer.
Yeah, it's so true, Mike.
You know, it's such a, and when I had put that you were coming on to the first podcast, I said, what kind of questions? If I have, I said, I put it on Facebook. I said, if you have time, I'll ask Dr. Bisci some questions. We didn't have time because we ran over time last time. But like four of the questions immediately that first popped up were ask him this about cancer, that about cancer. So I think it's a great topic to start with. I get very confused when I research cancer. I mean, it seems like cancer is formed from a variable amount of things, like a number of different things, and sometimes a compound effect of different things. I mean, cancer is basically damaged DNA. It's a cell's DNA gets damaged, and then the cells replicate damaged DNA, and that's what cancer is. Is that correct?
Yeah, cancer is, listen, the best expert, in my opinion, the best experts in the world don't have all the answers. Cancer is a very complicated type of a disease. And it's an acute disease. It's not like a chronic disease. Chronic disease, I believe the human body has tremendous God-given remedial capabilities to overcome just about every chronic disease with a change of lifestyle, cleansing your lymphatic system, cleansing your GI tract, cleansing your mind, and getting yourself spiritually grounded. But cancer is a whole new ball game.
So what's an example of a chronic disease then?
Diabetes, arthritis, which is considered to be an autoimmune disease.
Right.
Any disease that we get that we can live with for a long period of time. A lot of people have diseases they live 10, 15, 20, 30 years. That's a chronic disease. It was an acute disease, it would kill them.
Right.
So there's a whole host of chronic diseases that people are walking around and being medicated for. Most of the chronic diseases people are on medication for, and what they're doing, as we know, the doctors are doing it the best they can. They're treating people symptomatically. In a lot of cases, in most of the cases, they're not getting at the underlying cause of disease. I believe that most of our diseases begin, the ones that don't come from the outside, to what we're exposed to. Most of our diseases begin in our brain by what we believe, the thoughts we entertain, the choices we make. Remember, we have a choice in a lot of cases in what we're doing. Sometimes we just knowingly make the wrong choices, knowing that we're taking a chance, that the risk of taking these chances, we could get hurt, we could develop a disease. So the brain has tremendous influence what's happening. And then I believe that a lot of our diseases begin in our GI tract, as you know as well, which is very, very important.
What's happening with food in particular that's causing cancer then? Because I think a lot of people get it when it comes to radiation. They can understand the science.
That's pretty obvious.
Yeah, they can someone's been exposed to Agent Orange and they say, okay, this is a chemical, it enters the body, it stays in the tissue, it can damage the DNA. Okay, so people kind of get the chemical aspect of that. But what's happening with food? Because people that eat food that they believe is just normal food, they believe it's food, it's fine, they're getting cancer at 38, 39, 40 years old now. And what's happening chemically to the cells?
Well, to me, and I spent the last 50 years of my life trying to scientifically understand the nature of disease and trying to figure out, what was real, what was abstract science, because a lot of information that was available 30 years ago that was considered to be scientific turned out it wasn't scientific at all. So I try to look at everything as scientifically as I have the ability to look at it, and factoring all my experiences in it with all the people I've worked with that had serious disease. Our lifestyle today, the standard American diet, is definitely a disease and cancer-producing diet, because the human body is not a garbage disposal system. And basically, the way all the foods today have been perverted, and all the chemicals that are being added to it, and all the chemicals that people are getting, from pharmaceuticals and from other areas, which are supposed to prevent us from getting disease, are actually contributing to the pool of the disease factors that sooner or later, based on our genetic blueprint, the body can't sustain it. It's going to break down. And then when it breaks down, if you don't get at the underlying cause soon enough, and it goes from being a chronic disease to an acute disease, that's where you start to have fatalities. But with lifestyle disease, there's no two ways about it. Standard American diet is mainly responsible for a lot of our cancers. And when that happens, you're eating all that processed food. Processed food is an absolute modern-day curse. It's an absolute disaster. Anybody who's eating processed food, to me, my way of thinking, is they're playing Russian roulette. That's what they're doing.
There was my friend that had passed recently. She went to the hospital, and for some reason they said, we're going to put you on a liquid diet now. And she said, this diet, she said it was a fifth grader's dream. She said you wouldn't believe what came out on the plate. It was ginger ale, packaged sugared cranberry juice, vanilla pudding, chocolate ice cream, and the only thing there that was even remotely resembled food was a potato leek soup. But that was the only actual food item on the menu. All the rest was sweets, and it wasn't even liquid, really. It was like puddings and things like that. So it seems like there's really mistakes on both sides of it. Medical doctors really drop the ball when it comes to nutrition and things like that.
Well, they're not trained. We can't really blame them. They're not trained. They should be, because the Hippocratic Oath says to do as little harm to the human body as you possibly can. So how can you treat the human body for a disease without taking a look at the underlying cause? Mm-hmm. That would be kind of like taking a look at a broken arm that has a compound fracture, not resetting it and just put a cast on it so you can't move it.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. We're very lucky today, though. There is a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of bad information out there. There's a lot of abstract information out there. And there's a lot of anecdotal information out there being put out with people that they shouldn't have the presence on the way I look at it, on the computer that they do. Because they're misleading a lot of people.
Well, that's the error on the other side, I was going to say. So a lot of holistic practitioners and non-practitioners that are sort of self-appointed practitioners, and to their benefit, and I see where they kind of goof this up.
I'm not knocking anybody.
They, some people have switched over to raw diets or fasted or done holistic treatments and completely healed. So I think it excited everybody, and everybody started promoting that angle of it. Without all the rest that sort of followed. So it seems like if we could just bring the two together, it would be a very good thing.
That's what I wanted. That's my ambition.
You had told me a story about a woman from Staten Island, that she very simply just fasted on carrot juice for a few months and healed herself.
That was me. Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was at that time. I thought it was a mistake.
Yeah. And it worked. It worked well for her, and it has for some other people. Yeah. Now, what's occurring there then? So we have damaged DNA from a variety of sources. We have damaged DNA cells. They're replicating. Cancer is moving through the body in whatever way specific to that individual. And then, so for those certain people that do start to clean up their diet and make lifestyle changes, and in some cases fast on carrot juice in this case. What's happening then to that DNA? How is that DNA getting repaired, and how is that cancer?
Well, when a person that has any kind of disease that comes from their lifestyle or what they've been exposed to, including cancer, when a person switches their lifestyle, based on the concept of what you leave out. See, I keep bringing to the table all the time the concept of what you leave out. If you don't leave out the processed food, you really don't have much of a chance to enable your body to overcome cancer, to go into remission for long term. Of course, doctors, they do help some people get into remission through medical treatment, but basically surgery is the most. If you can exercise a cancerous tumor that's completely encapsulated, you're really helping a person like that, because that cancer has been removed from their body, and there's a good chance their immune system could kick in, because everybody probably has some cancer cells in their body that are being kept under control by the white blood cells and different parts of the immunological system. So I think with doctors believe that you have to kill a cancer cell. That's why they use surgery to exercise it, take it out. That's one way of killing it. Or they use chemotherapy or radiation or other things. There are other things that are really, the doctors know that chemotherapy is poison, toxic to the human body. They know that. So what happens in cases like that, if a person don't change their lifestyle, even if you have surgery and that encapsulated tumor has been removed, there's a good chance that tumor is going to come back, because you have the same underlying lifestyle. And when you're eating a standard American diet, and you're eating late at night, you're eating 5 or 6 times a day, you're drinking soda, you're drinking alcohol, you're smoking, you're bombarding your body like with exotoxins that are going into the body, and the body has to cope with. Then you're mixing up all these different types of foods. Most people are walking around taking Tums and all these things for indigestion. I believe that's where our disease begins. I believe that's where cancer begins. Okay, so when you take a look at that, what happens with indigestion, and people that have so much chronic indigestion, they have a lot of fermentation going on in their system. You can usually see it in people's eyes.
There's some bloodshot eyes and things like that.
Yeah, and bags under their eyes from the pressure, the intercellular gas pressure. So when that happens, when people stop and you convince them that they shouldn't be eating 5 meals a day. Everybody's being told to eat 5 meals a day, very small amounts, and their symptoms go down, and like they lose a little bit of weight, but they don't realize what they're doing. The body's got to be detoxing all the time. Of course, traditional tell you people you're always detoxing. Oh yeah, that's good, that's true. But you're not detoxing up to the level of preventing disease when you're doing all these things wrong. It all depends upon how much you're detoxing, how much you can cope with, how well your lymphatic system is handling it, how well your GI tract is handling it, and how well your brain is handling all this. You got to put the whole package together. So what happens then when you start with that indigestion, chronic indigestion, year after year? You get that, you got that big belly. You can put more food into that big belly, and then you start to ferment. Okay, so what happens? We have trillions of bacteria living within us. Some are pathogenic, some are good, like similar to probiotics. So if your body, your immunological system is under constant stress from your lifestyle, whatever you're doing, even you're exposed to some kind of a chemical, you're living near a cell tower, which is certainly not good, but for sure. So you're doing everything else, your body's under attack. And even if you're eating a good diet, there's a lot of attack going on in our environment. So when that happens, the body, the pathogenic bacteria, we're creating so much putrefaction in our system that the body can't keep up with it. So what happens? The bacteria, pathogenic bacteria, start to multiply. They off gas. When they off gas, now there's some doctors now that are saying that colitis and Crohn's disease, that they're curing it with antibiotics. Well, people think that's ridiculous. So, and they say when you have colitis or Crohn's disease, some of these other diseases, that you have a potential to develop cancer. I believe that's true. So what's the next stage beyond that? That's why when the doctor said, you got to take care of this. If you've got colitis, this could eventually be a cancer.
So let's look at that. They're curing it with antibiotics because
some doctors say that's absolutely not true, but there is one doctor says he's doing it all the time.
And that would be happening because there is the antibiotics are killing off pathogenic bacteria that are creating poisonous waste gases that are irritating the mucosal membranes and the cells in the intestines. And causing
the bleed and every other thing.
Yeah. So
you can help a person like that with diet, with fasting, juice. juice dieting. But what happens in a lot of cases, it can come back, because you're not getting at the original cause of your lifestyle that is causing this. We got to get at the underlying causes. And some of it has a lot to do emotionally, psychologically, anxiety, or compulsive habits that we have to do things, that we shouldn't be doing, and even doing them to excess, which then a positive thing can become a negative thing. So this, as I said before, it's very complicated. So when you have that bacteria proliferation, you're off-gassing. You're producing methane and hydrogen gas and other gases that we're not sure of.
And this is why, so these are those really stinky farts, basically. This is when those college kids put YouTube videos up, they're lighting their farts on fire in a dark room.
Well, that's the methane. Yeah. That's the explosive methane.
Yeah, and that explosive gas in the body will get picked up into the bloodstream and travel around as it wants to, yeah?
Yeah, but here's where the big confusion is in the, the raw food and the vegan community. Everybody's totally focused on what Otto Warburg said, because he won a Nobel Peace Prize. He said cancer is fueled by fermentative, non-oxidative respiration. So people have come to the conclusion, because of fermentation, quote, quote, fermentation, that you should not be eating any fruit. That's an absolute mistake, in my opinion. Every cell, whether you're a cancer cell or a healthy cell, has to have sugar. You can't drop the sugar down in our diet completely, because we won't function. And now fruit sugars, because a lot of people are saying now if you have cancer, and a lot of people stop eating fruit no matter what's wrong with them, because they don't understand the detox, that the fruit sugars have a higher electromagnetic frequency, and they enable you to detox faster, and they're much easier to digest. So you're going to have more symptoms. You're going to have bloat, you're going to have gas, because your body's going through this detox manifestation expeditiously.
Well, goes back to almost an Arnold Ehret type of thing. Like he used to just...
I guess so. I don't really remember exactly what he said.
He used to talk about the cleansing benefits of grape sugar, he used to call it, which meant all sugar. But what is the electromagnetic frequency of the sugars? How is that detoxing the body?
Well, it's the electromagnetic frequency is actually the vibrational force of energy. That's why one of the favorite quotes that Rory and I like to use is that the human body is spiritually vibrationally induced. There's energy is a vibrational force. So if you're having a spiritual experience, and a lot of people don't like to hear me talk about this because it's uncomfortable for them. I'm just sharing my experience. That to me, that's a very powerful thing. So it's a spiritually vibrationally induced, electromagnetically conducted, right, and biologically carried out. So in other words, all these other vibrational forces, and electromagnetic, because that's the impulses that go from your brain down to your wiring, electrical, it's like the wiring system in your house, those frequencies are the language or the communication between cells. So when you interrupt all these type of things, you're losing a big part of your immunity, your ability to resist disease. And when you do this, when you're eating this processed food, and you have this fermentation going on, and you're off-gassing, and it's going through the villi into the small intestines, going to the blood, it's going to the cells, it's going to the brain cells, it'll go through the brain barrier. So we're really messing things up. And part of that is your body clock, or circadian rhythms, If you're eating 2 o'clock in the morning, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, your body starts to slow down. When people eat and sleep, what happens is that food, I know when I eat late at night and I drink a glass of water in the morning and I burp a little bit up, I can smell, not to be disgusting, I could smell dinner from the night before, which means it's not being absorbed. It's still, or it is very slowly.
It's cooking.
It's sitting in there at 98 point something degrees, and it's off-gassing throughout the night. And that's why, if I do eat late at night, I wake up, bags under my eyes for a couple hours, I don't feel great,
Well, imagine that what's going on day after day, week after week, month after month. You think you could develop a cancer? Of course you could. Right. And don't forget, you're depriving your body of oxygen. Well, how much oxygen does a cell really require before they switch to fermentative, non-oxidative respiration? They say 25, 30%. So what are they switching to? What about these off gases that come in from the bacteria? Methane, hydrogen gas, and other gases that we're not even sure of. Can they exist on that? Looks that way. And don't forget, what Otto Warburg says with a theory, it's not written in stone. Mm-hmm. I think it's true. But a lot of people taking that and making it to mean something else. And it doesn't mean that. Now, let me try to explain to you why that's the case. First of all, it's the insulin-like growth hormones, 1 and 2, which enable a cell to divide and multiply. Without the protein, no matter how much sugar you get, because all cells require sugar, that cell it's not going to multiply. I want to see one person. I've seen a lot of people that attempted to live on fruitarian diets in my life, and really diets that were all, vegan diets where they ate mostly greens and no fruit. The people that ate mostly greens and drank green juices and didn't eat anything else, they were always like toothpicks. And they could have been healthy. And what happens is that the vegetables and a lot of other foods, your brain can only burn glucose as fuel and possibly ketones. There's some evidence through diabetics that they might be utilizing ketones. I don't really know. I don't know if anybody really knows. But what happens? So when you're eating vegetables, you're eating complex carbohydrates. The glucose, you have to secrete insulin. One of the best ways to look at that is let's look at a diabetic. Of course, diabetics have a better chance of developing cancer. So let's say they're, and I just recently seen a case just like that. Just recently. So what happens? You have to secrete enough insulin to the muscle receptors to pick up the insulin, so you don't have too much sugar in your blood. So what happens? If that happens, you do secrete insulin-like growth hormones. Insulin-like growth hormones 1 and 2, especially number 1. That's what causes a cancer cell to grow. As I said before, I've never seen one person that lived on fruits and vegetables, no matter how much fruit they ate, that developed any muscle, that their cells really grew. I've done it myself. They don't get bigger.
Yeah, now people get fit. They might look like Bruce Lee, but they don't put on bulky weight.
Yeah. So what happens? What is the reason for that? The reason for that is people don't realize, as I said before, that fructose has a higher vibrational force. Now, I'm not picking out some fancy terms. This has been, might not be in all the scientific literature. If you go to your computer, you might not find that. Or if you go ask your doctor, he's probably going to say, I never heard that before. But it's evident by people who have done the research that haven't got the publicity, and a lot of cultures in the world that realize that. And what happens is that when you eat the fruit, is that the fructose, it does not need insulin. It diffuses into the cell because of the higher vibrational force and pressure. It diffuses into a cell. Now, do I know that for sure? Yes, I do, because I've done it with many diabetics. I just did it just this past week. A guy was a bad diabetic, and his blood sugar, there was times when it was up 350, and it was coming down. He's eating a good diet now. It's coming down. He's had some serious issues because of his diabetes. It's coming down. So then he says, Freddie, can I eat some fruit? I said, yeah, go ahead. Don't worry about it. What about my sugar? So he asked his doctor, and good doctor girl said, no, you better not eat the fruit. So he said, but I'll try it. So I told him two boxes of blueberries. He ate 2 boxes of blueberries. Okay? I told him to check your blood sugar 2 hours after you eat the blueberries. He checked his blood sugar. It was 175 from 250. Then I told him the next day he ate 2 boxes of blueberries and 3 Granny Smith apples. Checked his blood sugar. It was 100. As soon as he ate the vegetables because of the glucose, it went up to 200.
So the fruits didn't affect his blood sugar as much as vegetables did.
Right.
Wow, that's really
because it's fructose instead of glucose. But what happened? So now, if this is true, which it is true, anybody should try it. I mean, I'm not giving people medical advice here. Whatever they do is up to them. So what happens, if that's true, how can fruit be feeding the cancer? Because the IGF-1, you're not going to produce insulin-like growth hormones, more insulin-like growth hormones. What promotes growth in a healthy cell also promotes growth in a cancer cell, and that's protein. Just think about it. It's basically very simple. We're ignoring simplicity of the biological function of the human body because we want to all sound like scientists and because of the computer. There's so much. See, I call that scientific reductionism. Everything is being broken down to this fancy scientific language. That's what's happening in the nutraceutical world, in supplements. It's another nutraceutical business is getting to be like the pharmaceutical business. Now people, they're going on the internet. Oh, I got gray hair. Oh, this is happening. That's happening. Oh, I can lose my belly fat by taking this super nutrient, I can do this. I can do that. I got bags under my eyes. I take vitamin E and whatever, and my bags under my eyes are going to go away. So everybody, and now that's enough. So everybody's looking at all this reductionism into breaking whole foods down to a scientific concept that's, if you're smart, if you're intellectual, you're going to follow the science because you have to be a smart person to follow the science. There is no substitute for whole foods. If you follow the whole food diet, whether you're eating a raw diet, a vegan diet, if you're eating a little bit of animal protein, if you're connecting all the dots and getting everything you need, and you're eating whole foods, you're probably not going to need much in the way of supplementation. You might not need anything. The quantum leap is to leave out 100% of the processed food, not 85 or 90%. It's like, that would be like me telling you, listen, Mike, I'm changing my diet. I'm giving up all my bad habits. I'm going to stop cheating on my wife. I'm going to stop doing all this, doing all these crazy things, but I'm just going to smoke a little bit of crack once in a while. That's the same type of thing. You have to give up all the processed food. Mm-hmm. That's the key. Then something happens in the human body where the body says, oh my goodness, look, this guy's giving me a break. I got on a whole new paradigm to function by. And what happens? That's the ultimate form of detox, is when you leave out what's poisoning you. Then you want to go into, if you have cancer, to clean out your lymphatic system, go for colonics, clean out your lower and your upper GI tract. Try to clean out your thinking. Try to get spiritually grounded. Try to get plenty of rest. Try to drink clean water. Try to get out into the forest or near the ocean for what it can do for you, your immunological system. Try to get grounded with the earth because the electromagnetic frequency is so therapeutic. People don't believe that type of stuff. I'll tell you a story that's an amazing story. I had a girl come to me, and she brought her boyfriend with her. That was 9/11, a big, rugged guy. And I'm talking to him, he's smoking, cursing up a storm, But he was a likable guy. I liked him. And he said to me, you think this, I won't use the word that he used, you think this stuff, works? Yeah, it works sometimes. It's very, very helpful. So then his girlfriend said, you should do it. He said, I'm finished. He says, I'm cooked. He says, and nothing's going to help me. Turns out he was at 9/11 for months, Guy was coughing and, he was a mess, So then, I said, why don't you try stop smoking? That's not help you. What good is it going to do? He said, I enjoy smoking. I keep a cigarette in my mouth all the time. He says, I think it's keeping me alive. In some respect, there's an element of truth because of that stimulation. He was not symptomatic, but it's killing him by not being symptomatic. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, lo and behold, he calls me up, and he says, I'm going to try following the diet with my girlfriend. So what does he do? He goes on, he starts following the diet, and he didn't do the most radical diet in the world. And what he did basically my intermediate level diet, and he was doing good. He was a big guy, maybe 250, 6'2". He lost about 50 pounds, wow. Which he didn't care. He said he felt good. He was breathing better and everything. And then he said to me, he started to throw up a lot. And I had told him to go down and walk near the ocean barefooted, because of negative ions, and you were grounded.
Well, let's talk about that for a second as you tell this story. You said you've told me to do this, to walk barefoot in the surf or on the wet sand and take deep breaths where the waves are breaking.
Yeah, right.
And you were telling me that it creates an electrical current through the body between the minerals coming off of the breaking waves.
And you're getting that electromagnetic energy, which is, it's very, very healing. That's why they have these tables that people lay on, right? They have different PMF pads, they call them, different types of applications that it helps relieve pain and everything that works that well. Well, if you ground yourself, you go out and walk in the meadow with grass, amongst the trees because of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide exchange, or you go near the ocean and it's wet, it's a better conductor. I feel it. I get down there, you walk, and before you know it, you're breaking out into a run. You just, after 10, 15 minutes, you feel good if you go on a regular basis. And once in a while, you run and let your feet get wet. And then you're getting, as the water breaks on a beach, you get negative ions, or if you're near a waterfall. You ever go near a waterfalls up in the country and how good you feel?
Mm-hmm.
That's the same type of thing.
It's almost like after a rainfall too.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, the negative ions get released.
But let me tell you what happened with this guy. So he said he was throwing up. I said, okay. I said, when are you going down the beach again? He said, I'm going down tomorrow. I said, okay, I'll meet you down the beach. We went down to South Beach, and he didn't look good. He just didn't look good. So what happened? We're walking along, and I see him. He's like fighting back to his ability that he wanted to vomit. So I said to him, Tony, I know it's not a pleasant experience, but vomit, it's not going to be a big deal. I didn't realize what was going to happen. All of a sudden, the guy went, and what came out of his mouth, it looked like a pail of marshmallow or something. This guy started throwing up this white slimy stuff. Of course, it was probably from 9/11. Then he proceeded to tell me that he had diarrhea for a while. His immunological system, his body was trying to unload itself. Well, I was flabbergasted when I saw what this guy was throwing up. I just couldn't believe it. I said to myself, in fact, I come home and told my wife. My wife, she's not impressed by any of this stuff. Oh, Freddie, you don't know what's happening with people. So what happened? He went down. He kept going down the beach. He kept throwing up. I went down, met him. He threw up. Then he started to throw up less. And then he started telling me he felt real good. Now, he didn't take any heroic measures. He didn't do some of the things that we know that people can do. He didn't do all that. He just started leaving out all the processed food. That's what he did, though. So guess what happened? This guy started to feel real good. So he stayed pretty much onto the diet. And he told me that he decided he was going to move to Florida. And he said, I want to be honest with you, I'm back to smoking. Not a good idea. He said, I know. I realized that. He said, I believe,
He had quit smoking when he was on the diet for a while.
Right.
Well, that's even better. I didn't realize he had quit smoking.
Yeah, he quit smoking.
Wow.
And he did what he was doing for about, I don't remember exactly, probably around a year or so, But I saw what came out of that guy. It was unbelievable.
The power of what happens on the beach is incredible. I learned that as a teenager. When one time I decided we were all out at a beach somewhere in New Jersey, and I decided to start drinking alcohol. I was drinking 40 ounces of malt liquor on a beach. I'd never had alcohol on a beach before that point. I felt sick for days after that, but immediately felt disgusting and horrible and sick on it. If we would have been, a mile inland in some house party or something, it would have been fine.
Well, the sunshine had a lot to do with that, too.
The sunshine, everything. I was just sickened beyond, and I thought, this is the worst experience. It was terrible. It was terrible.
Well, let's analyze this. Let's take a second look at this, Do people usually get more infectious disease in the summer or the winter? In the winter. Now, bacteria usually don't proliferate well below 40 degrees, but we're getting sick all the time, especially
and the air is drier. It's more humid air. Everything's, bacteria.
Well, you're creating a perfect environment, especially between Thanksgiving and, everybody's getting sick. We're getting the, Mongolian flu, the Chinese flu, the Italian flu. Everybody's overeating and indulging themselves, stuffing food into their mouth. And they say, oh, yeah, after New Year's, I'm going to go on a diet and all this type of stuff. Now, how come during the summer, I remember when I was a kid going down the shore, and we used to rent a house down there, and people were living like crazy down there, drinking every night, eating the worst food, and everything, and people weren't getting sick. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they were on the beach, and they come down to the beach. I remember some of the people used to come down to the beach with a hangover. Oh my God, I feel terrible. I don't feel good. They put a towel over their head, and then they go jump in the ocean, swim in the ocean, and about after an hour or so, say, wow, I really feel great now. I really feel good. What happened there? Nature had its way. That's what happened. We have to let nature have its way. And it's the same, getting back to cancer. What happens when we're in there and the bacteria start to proliferate? They start to off-gas, right? We start to have all these problems in our upper GI tract. And we're off-gassing through the villi on a cellular level. And the body starts to switch from burning less oxygen, burning something else. It is fermenting, but the fermenting, you can't blame it on the fruit. It's coming from the indigestion, overeating. Our stomachs are still. And actually, when you switch your diet and eat some fruit, remember the fruit sugars are not increasing the production of IGF-1, where the protein actually feeds the cell. That's where we grow. I never seen one guy that was a weightlifter, and I was a weightlifter one time, weighed 200 pounds. Never saw one guy that got big on the fruit by eating a lot of fruit. They had to eat the animal protein. The more animal protein they ate, the heavier they trained, the bigger they got. You had to train, overload the system, eat a lot of protein to stimulate the heavy resistance. High protein stimulated the overgrowth of your physical body, your muscles. Same thing with a cancer cell. You have to look at the cancer cell as if you were feeding a muscle. What feeds a muscle? Because if you feed the muscle with sugar, no, sugar gives you energy and endurance. Well, that's the key. What kind of sugar is it? That's the key. You got to look at, not all sugars are the same. And then what about the standard American diet, where it's loaded with sugar? It's loaded with processed food. It's loaded with simple sugars from garbage. It's loaded with, animal protein. Animal protein, as far as I'm concerned, is more conducive to the growth of cancer cells than vegetable protein. Why? Most people that try to, get big muscles on a vegan diet, they don't get big muscles like they get on a like some of these guys are like mastodons with 20-inch arms and 30-inch thighs. Very obvious. If you look at this in the obvious way, see what happens when we get into, with all the confusion on the internet with science, which a lot of is abstract. It's not real. Double-blind studies, how real are they? Are they factored into the equation all the variables? Double-blind studies, what do they have? 2, 5, 10, 20 variables? How many is that as far as the human body is concerned? What about how a person's thinking? What about what they're doing, in the rest of their life? I remember one study that was a huge study. It was done was multiple choice questions. It was classified as an epidemiological study. That was ridiculous. That's not an epidemiological study. And it's, just like in the China project, T. Colin Campbell did. That was a great epidemiological study. And that man's a brilliant guy that had to fight uphill against what, was coming out. A lot of people say. And people are still saying things about it.
They say he cherry-picked a lot of information and stuff like that. Those are the criticisms. But
the bottom line is, does it work? When you follow that type of a diet, do you get better or do you get worse? I don't care about the science behind it. I really don't care no more. You get better or you get worse? Mm-hmm. You get better. Mm-hmm. Why? Because of what you're leaving out. That's it. And he in the type of diet that he recommends, there's plenty of cooked food in there, but he does recommend plenty. You have to eat raw food. I don't say you have to. You should.
At some percentage.
Huh?
I think at some percentage, 60 to 80% minimum, I think, for most people.
Yeah, I think you're right. Getting back to what we were talking about with the cancer and all the confusion about people told not to eat fruit. I have seen some of the best recoveries I have seen where the body heals you with people that ate fruit. Because if you're not eating enough fruit, if you don't have enough, because remember, a regular cell and a cancer cell has one purpose. It's just to replicate itself. No other purpose. Other cells have other functions. So a cancer cell, all it wants to do is replicate itself, grow and multiply, and what that means is spread and eventually kill you. It's like having a cannibal inside you. And you can't starve a regular cell without starving.
They're all connected to the same food stream.
They're all connected to the same physiology.
And so we were talking about food and indigestion, really. And I just want the listeners to understand how this works.
Yeah, that's a big problem. People just don't realize that.
We had started off, so basically detox happens. It happens in the absence of things. It doesn't happen so like eating 5 times a day. The issue with that is the stacking of food and the food not making its way through the system, basically rotting in the stomach and releasing
Well, you're supposed
gases.
to snack. You're supposed to eat a little bit like this, but people don't do it. People find, validation in eating more food throughout the day. I know people eat 5 times a day. They're eating 5 meals a day. And a lot of guys that work out with weights in order to get bigger, guess what they're eating? 3 protein meals a day, and they are getting bigger.
And what's happening in the intestines is that protein is either leaving residues or it's not leaving completely or it's taking too long. It's too much
cooking.
Protein.
It's fermenting in there.
Yeah, so we have a 98 point something, 98.7 or so degree chamber with bacteria in it. And if the food doesn't move in, get absorbed, and move out, it's going to
Oh, the
basically break
pathogenic
down.
bacteria, they love that environment. They're
Yeah.
very happy. You're taking them to a smorgasbord. You're giving them a huge smorgasbord to live by.
So avoiding foods that leave residues in the body, proper food combining, not stacking meals, allowing distance between meals, and not eating late at night where the food's going to move slowly.
Eating late at night is a real problem. It's very obvious that the human body is a real sophisticated biological machine. It's just like your automobile. You buy a BMW or a Ferrari or a Mercedes, you get a handbook how to take care of that car. You don't put kerosene in the gas tank. You have to put a certain octane gasoline in there. Otherwise, that car won't run as efficiently. Same thing with the human body. Everybody has an Uncle Louie or an Aunt Millie that eats a bad diet and is 80 years old walking around. And of course, we hear the same old story that we're living longer today than we ever did. That's true. That's true. A lot of people say, "Oh, that's not true." It is true, because if you look at the obituaries my wife looks at the obituaries in the advance, and you always see people 98, 96, 85, and a lot of these people are in the nursing homes. They don't have a quality of life. They're having bypass surgery, they're having stents put in, they're having bypass into their legs, they have diabetes, they're getting surgery. A lot of people now, I went with somebody up into Columbia Presbyterian, went into the transplant unit with this person who's pretty sick. There's people getting lung transplants and liver transplants because the surgeons are so skillful now. They're so good. They're doing things. They're buying time for people. So what's happening with science and with procedures now, these people that would be dying for these problems, they're prolonging their lives. It doesn't mean they're leading healthier lives that we could justify them eating a bad diet. No. They might not need these procedures, possibly, if they were eating a good diet. Mm-hmm. Very obvious. I see that. I've seen that all the time. There are mistakes being made with cancer, too, and I believe, my personal belief is that fruit is not the culprit. Everybody's trying to make it. And I think, as I said, a lot of diabetics are not eating any fruit. That's a mistake. All the diabetics I see that eat fruit, it actually helps bring the sugar down because of the fructose. It diffuses into a cell. It doesn't need the insulin like glucose does.
And you mean they should be eating moderate amounts of fruit?
Yeah, I'm not talking about eating a bushel of oranges. No, I'm not talking about that type of stuff.
We had talked about treatments earlier. Like we talked about surgery being a pretty decent option in most cases.
That's something a person should consider if they have a encapsulated tumor. I'd be a dishonest guy if somebody had a tumor, the cancer had metastasized. And in my opinion, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not giving anybody medical advice. But, any honest person would tell you best thing to do is get that thing out of the body. Don't wait and try to do it all with nutrition, because it might take some time. By then, it might escape the encapsulation. You have a metastasized cancer. And sometimes, it all depends.
Right. Some people can do it simply by cleaning up their lifestyle, depending. But you have to understand your variables and do it smartly.
Oh, absolutely. I believe the answer to cancer right now is to impress upon people, to try to make them realize that we can prevent, just about all of our diseases. I'm not saying now that we have the answer that's a panacea and that we're going to live forever. There are people on the internet now that are giving people the impression you follow a raw diet, you can overcome everything. And if that's the case, that means we got it made. We're going to live forever in this mortal body. Well, that just is not true. And anybody that thinks because they're eating a raw diet that they're 100% of the time they're going to overcome every disease, that's a mistake. And I believe that science has a lot of great answers for us. And nobody should automatically shut out the answer to traditional science and traditional medicine, because in some respects, when somebody needs a surgery, if somebody needs emergency surgery or they need some kind of immediate medical treatment to save their life, you're not going to go out and eat an apple and drink a glass of green juice, because it's not going to do it. Right. I've seen that happen. And I've seen cases where people, the best choice they had with a cancer was to have the surgery of an encapsulated cancer, then jump into a good lifestyle. rather than wait, because I've seen people wait and the cancer spread on them.
Well, Fred, thanks so much for sharing everything with us today, for
It's
hanging
always
out again on the podcast.
a lot of fun. I enjoy
you.
doing this, you know what I mean? Anytime you want me to do it.
People putting questions on Facebook all the time. So
Yeah, right. I like questions.
All right, good.
I deal better with questions, you know. I really do, of course. I don't consider myself to be the most eloquent speaker, but of course, I was dyslexic when I was a kid, and I kind of slur my words a little bit, but that's who I really am, and I'm very comfortable with that, because I like questions. Because when you have a lot of mental chatter like I've had my whole life, when people give you a question, then I can really focus on that question. Then I really can pull out a lot of information out of my head that's been there for years, because it kind of focuses me, you know.
Because your brain moves fast. You have thoughts moving all over
Huh?
the place. You have thoughts moving all over the place. Your
Yeah,
brain
I'm
works
like a
quickly.
multivariable thinker all the time. When somebody tells me something, I'm already trying to analyze it and break it down and trying to, you know, and that's all part of what I would classify as a kid as a learning disability. And that's, of course, also like when I'm watching a movie or something with my wife, you know, I'm thinking about 50 different things, you know, and I have to stay on top of the movie so the
In case she asked you a question, so you could keep. She doesn't know you're not paying
in case
attention.
my wife tests me, you know.
Well, okay. Well, there we go. There's the next podcast, Q&A with Dr. Fred Bisci. We'll do that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that was
Thanks
fun.
so much for being here today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Guys, if you can get over to EveryDayDetox.org, and you could sign up on the newsletter to find out when there's going to be more podcasts coming, and we'll let you know when that next one out, that Q&A one is coming out. Fred, thanks so much, and
Pleasure.
we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.